Chapter 6. The last of the day's sunlight swept through the cottage, bathing the walls in rich tones of amber as I stood in front of the mirror. My fingers ran through the loose strands of my hair as I glanced back at my reflection, wondering how Peter perceived me in his mind. Most of my life, I had relied on my appearance to dominate how others saw me, the full lips and flirty smile, clothes that hugged my curves. These traits, which I thought had always defined me, did not apply when I was around Peter. The realization hit me like a burst of freedom. Liberated from the constraints of my physical facade, I no longer needed to concern myself with these habitual expectations of beauty, the ones that had molded and warped my self-worth for so many years. Small breasts I wished were bigger, a stomach that could be flatter. For the first time, none of it mattered anymore. I headed into the kitchen and dug through the cupboards, looking for the bottle of wine I had stashed. With the bottle of Cabernet in hand, I walked down the dirt path that hugged the fence line, the smell of charcoal and wood smoke wafting through the air as I approached the porch. Dusty pushed open the screen door and ran over to me with an enthusiastic greeting, his thick tail whipping against my legs. "Come on in, Laura," Peter called from somewhere within the house. I found him in the kitchen, standing at the counter chopping vegetables. "Hey there, I brought some wine." Peter set down the knife and reached out his hand to take the bottle. His fingers wound momentarily around mine, and a soft tingle of electricity spread across my skin. Thanks. Red or white?" "Red." Peter nodded. "This will go great with the steaks then. You do eat steak, right?" "Yes, I do." I tried to push away the growing feeling of giddiness that rose inside. I knew it was only my loneliness breathing convincing stories in my ear. "Oh, thank God." Peter flashed a smile. "Can I help you with anything?" He resumed chopping. "Nope, just make yourself comfortable. I'm gonna throw all this in the grill in a sec." I nervously watched him slice through a tomato. "Aren't you afraid you're gonna cut yourself?" Peter chuckled. "Oh, I've cut myself plenty. But after a while, I've learned to perceive things in grids. I map out the length of something and determine how many cuts I need to make, kind of like a mathematical equation." "That's interesting." I watched as Peter continued to chop the vegetables, noticing how even the pieces were, his motion smooth and precise. "Is that what makes it easier for you to get around? I noticed that you don't use a cane or anything." He nodded with a slight chuckle. "Well, part of that is just sheer stubbornness, honestly, but yes, once I'm able to map out the dimensions of what is around me, I can navigate it a lot easier." He opened a drawer with one hand, felt around inside, and retrieved a bottle opener, placing it on the counter. "Here, you can open the wine if you'd like." "I want to thank you for taking me riding today." I twisted the opener through the cork, removed it with a loud pop, and grabbed 2 glasses from the cupboard. It really did help get me out of my funk. Peter threw the remainder of the vegetables into a large bowl. "I'm glad to hear that. Anytime you want to get back on a horse, just let me know." With a small smile, he slid past me and out the back door. Following him outside with my glass of wine, I gazed out at the long shadows of early evening which spread across the pasture. I could really get used to this. "Having a man cook you dinner?" Peter grinned as he placed the steaks on the grill with a loud sizzle. "No, I mean all this open space." I turned to him with a playful smile, though a man cooking me dinner definitely adds to the view. A deep laugh resonated from low in Peter's throat. "Well, I'm so glad I can add to the view." We sat at the picnic table beneath the large sycamore tree, wine glasses resting on the cloth Peter had laid out, while a gentle breeze ruffled through our hair. We ate in a comfortable silence for a while, as shadows from the leaves overhead cast soft patterns across the table. I had learned that Peter didn't care much for small talk, and I found that refreshing. So much of my relationship with John had consisted of me nodding while he rambled on, unaware, entertained by the sound of his own voice. But there was a stillness between Peter and I that did not need words to fill the space. Our legs occasionally brushed up against each other under the table, and something about it felt natural and intimate. Peter, when I first met you, I figured you were going to be a tough nut to crack." He cocked his head to the side, his fork paused in midair. "What do you mean?" Well, you didn't seem very pleased with me when I showed up that day with Miriam, and she did warn me that you could be a bit bristly at times. Peter chuckled at that, his hand skimming along the tablecloth to find his wine glass. She did she? I leaned toward him, my elbows resting on the table. But you have been surprisingly hospitable. He shrugged. What can I say? I enjoy your company, Lara. A warmth rose to my cheeks. And why is that? I found myself boldly asking. His eyes drifted to a point beyond me. There's a quietness about you. A quietness? I furrowed my brows. Yes, your energy is calming. Really? A slow smile spread over Peter's face as his voice grew soft. Really? I watched him as he resumed eating, his candid words settling around me like a quiet invitation. The sun shifted its soft light across the pasture as we finished our meal and poured the last of the wine into our glasses. That was a really good dinner, Peter. I'm glad you liked it. Standing up, I stretched out my limbs and grabbed my empty plate from the table. Do you mind if I use your bathroom? He nodded. Sure thing, it's the first door down the hall. I made my way into the house and down the hallway. Opening the first door I came to, I stepped into a room that was clearly not the bathroom. A large table in the corner contained brushes and oil paint scattered across the worn wooden surface. Beside the window sat an easel with a half-finished painting of a mountain range. Streaks of violet and crimson splashed across the sky. I stepped closer to study it, noticing the thick layer of dust on the canvas. Glancing around, I realized that everything was covered in dust, as if Peter had not been in this room for years. Quietly closing the door, I found the bathroom and flicked on the lights, a tight feeling of sadness overcoming me, as I tried to imagine how it must feel for him to be an artist and then lose his sight. I was familiar with the feeling of life pushing you away from the things that mattered most. Laura, are you sure this is what you want to do? You can take an extended leave of absence. Your job will always be here when you're ready to come back. The muffled sounds of children laughing on the playground filters in through the open window, cutting me like a knife. I choke back the tears, my words coming out in a trembled rush. I don't know if I'm ever going to be ready to come back. Returning to the kitchen, I found Peter washing the dishes. I leaned against the doorframe, watching him. His sleeves were rolled up, showing the muscular definition of his arms, his skin a golden brown from the sun. I didn't know those paintings in the living room were yours, Peter. The sound of my voice caused him to abruptly turn around. How did you know those paintings were mine? His words came out clipped. I just saw the art room. What were you doing in my art room? Peter's face grew tense. I'm sorry. I bit my lip, a feeling of mild discomfort washing over me. I wasn't trying to snoop or anything. I just accidentally opened the wrong door. He let out a deep sigh, and a sorrow seemed to sweep through him as he spoke. Yes, I used to be a painter, Laura. Well, they're really beautiful. My words came out cautious, as I realized I had broached a topic he was clearly sensitive about. He moved closer to me, his eyes abruptly flashing with a sharp intensity. So, now that you seem to know about all the things I used to do, I think it's your turn. What do you mean? I stared at him, a flicker of tension curling around me. What's your story? I may be blind, but I can clearly see that you're running from something. My heart pounded, and an emotion akin to anger stirred inside. That's none of your business. You're right. It is none of my business. He threw the words back at me like a challenge. I sucked in a breath. I think I'm going to call it a night, Peter. Thanks for dinner. Laura, wait. Peter reached out to me, his hand lightly touching my arm as his eyes softened. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I abruptly pulled away, leaving him standing there in the kitchen with his face furrowed. The sun had sunk below the ridge of the mountains, washing the sky in a bright pink glow as I walked back to the cottage. My heart was a stone tumbling around in my chest, as if all my pain had solidified into a substance that left me inert, so terrified of what would spill out if I opened my mouth. Opening the cottage door, I walked into the kitchen, my eyes falling to the blinking light coming from my phone on the counter. My breath caught within my throat as I read the message from John that flashed across my screen. Please call me. We need to talk.